Uh, I consider her a friend. I've been lucky to interview her many times, and now she has run for president more than once, at least somewhere between 2 and 6 times. No, 2 times, and always speaking the truth. And she is now the campaign manager for Cornel West, who is one of the candidates aiming for the Green Party nomination. And please welcome Dr. Jill Stein.
Awesome to be here. Thanks so much, Lee. Thanks for speaking truth to power. Thanks for the heads up about what's going on with Gonzalo Lira, which really speaks volumes about the crisis of our democracy, freedom of the press, our right to protest, and the war machine that's taken over, and the democracy that does not exist in Ukraine, and the crisis that's going on there as we throw over $100 billion at Ukraine, and with the help of the Democrats, ensure that there will be no oversight, in this latest vote in Congress about whether there would be an inspector general to oversee the spending of that money. Thank you, Democrats, for, ensuring that this money will continue to just be given away.
Yeah, they fought to make sure there would be no audit.
No audit of the money going to Ukraine, and that goes hand in hand with their inability to do an audit like times 6. Just
in the Pentagon,
part of the Pentagon. So we're just throwing money, and weapons wherever they may have to go. Whatever black market they're going down, however they're being sold, at a profit, however they're finding their way into, all sorts of nefarious hands. It's like it's just more profits for the war contractors who are calling the shots as ever. And again, underscoring why it is that we need a big fight, a big political fight here that can really call out, this empire for all it's worth, and mobilize the rebellion that's already going on to, put an end to empire abroad and the devastation that creates around the world and here at home, especially. So,
as long as we're on the topic, what do you see happening in Ukraine? What in God's name are we doing there, and how long is this going to last? What do you see as the end game for this?
Yeah, I mean, the only feasible end game is a ceasefire and negotiations. There's no rocket science here at all about how you end war. You don't end war with more war or with more weapons and with more ultimatums and ever more powerful weapons that are ever extending this war, to where the attacks now inside of Russia and on Moscow are absolutely routine. And if you were looking to create a nuclear war and World War III, I think, the Biden administration is doing a really good job of running up to that war. So, they have to be called out, and that's why, it's really important for us to have alternative people-powered politics that's fighting strong in this election. How can you call it a lesser evil when the Democrats are leading the charge here in Ukraine and, towards nuclear confrontation and just ever worsening escalation of this war. So we need a ceasefire. We need diplomacy. We need respect for international law. And we need to recognize this war didn't just start in February of 2022. Arguably, it began in 2014 with the U.S.-supported coup, which is a disaster. Thank you, Victoria Nuland, who, of course, has been reappointed by Democrats and Republicans alike to do her, her handiwork. And the Democrats are really leading the charge right now on war. Look at what the Progressive Caucus did, with their letter, their big letter that was going to say, hey, remember, there is such a thing as diplomacy negotiations. Oh my God, they had to withdraw it. It was so embarrassing and humiliating. They dared to mention that, so the Democrats
just an incredibly limp request for diplomacy had to be immediately withdrawn.
Yeah, it's outrageous. And it really speaks to the reality that the Democrats are not the lesser evil. And it's a real, it's just outrageous to be subject to that propaganda that the Democrats are the lesser evil. Are they the lesser evil on nuclear weapons? Are they the lesser evil on an escalation towards nuclear war? Are they the lesser evil on censorship? The way they've been leading the charge, their treatment not only of Assange. Well, they've certainly continued Trump's treatment of Assange, but before that, Obama wasn't going to go there. Now Biden is leading the charge against Assange, and it's absolutely outrageous that Australia is now calling for protection of their citizen and to end the extradition process now.
You mean outrageous that the U.S. is ignoring those
requests?
It's
outrageous that the U.S. has ignored this now that that Australia is standing up to demand what they have a right to call for, which is that their citizens should be returned home to them. And, for Biden to or actually it was Blinken who, made these outrageous comments about how Assange was basically a war criminal who had gotten, U.S. assets into trouble. That's absolutely not true. Assange was very responsible in how those were redacted, how the revelations were redacted, and that there has been absolutely no evidence. So what he said is completely false. It's just, you were talking about the kangaroo court that the Gonzalo Lira would be facing. Same thing, Julian Assange all the way through has faced a kangaroo court and totally concocted charges and accusations. This is all about silencing those who would hold the criminal war industry and the political parties that support it about holding their feet to the fire. If we can't hold them accountable, we don't have a democracy. If we don't have a free press, we don't have a democracy. So this fight is very important, and the larger context in which this presidential campaign is happening is extremely important. And it's going to fall to the Green Party, really, which is the one independent political party that has a national scope that can fight this at a national level and give the American people a fighting chance, both with regard to the utter wasting of our national resources, the endangerment of the entire world, including us in this outrageous war, and all the other issues that could be solved right now if only we had a political force that was working for us and not basically for war and Wall Street, which is what the two main parties are about. And forget, this propaganda that the Democrats are the lesser evil. They're clearly not. And what's going on in Ukraine is evidence of that. It's not rocket science about how we implement diplomacy in Ukraine. And the Minsk Accords were a very good start. And,
although they've now admitted that they never intended to abide by them. They just wanted to heavily arm Ukraine in the time they could buy.
Exactly. And what John Mersheimer said to your original question about what's going on here, what John Mersheimer, one of the leading experts on Ukraine and post-war dynamics, who's followed the Ukraine, Soviet Union, Russia, EU dynamics very closely all along the way. What he's, his explanation, and I think his most recent interview and public statement was that I think Aaron Mate was making the point, that this is like intentional malevolence on the part of the U.S. empire, and which it may well be. And the competing explanation is what Mersheimer said, which is, no, it's just stupidity, and that there's not clear evidence to say it's one or the other, but it's unbelievably stupid, destructive, puts us all at risk. We cannot afford to have the war predators running the show, which is what they're doing and which is what's built into our political system now. These are the funders of our two major political parties. And the good thing is that people are clamoring for the alternatives now. For all kinds of reasons, like that 60% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. 40% of people who rent are severely economically stressed. Many are foregoing meals in order to meet their rent, let alone their health care. We don't have a world we can survive in right now. We need fundamental
I assume
clamoring for it.
I assume all of these reasons are part of the reason that you've decided to again be involved in a presidential campaign, although this time not your own. You in your two runs, you were by the establishment, by the mainstream media, you were called every name in the book. You were Russian, you were a spoiler, it's just amazing the amount of hatred and crap that is thrown at anybody that dare be outside of the two corporate parties. What advice can you give to Dr. West, who you're working with, as he faces this? And the first articles are already out calling him every name in the book. I think the first article by MSNBC said that Cornel West is a right winger at heart, and it's just insane.
And a threat to the Constitution, and and of course a spoiler. And who's leading the charge in this accusation that Cornel West is a spoiler? It's the old white guys, basically. It's the David Axelrods and the old Clinton crowd that are leading the charge. Why? Because it's their stranglehold on power that's being spoiled. Life is being spoiled for everybody else, for most people in this country and around the world. I mean, consider that the top 1% now has 30% of wealth. The bottom 50% in this country has 2% of wealth. 2% is spread out among 50 people. I mean, that really tells you what's going on and why
spread out among 50%. Yeah.
What's that?
You said 50 people, 50%. Yeah.
50%. I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes. It's 2% of America that has, let me say that the other way. It's 50% of America that is sharing 2% of wealth, and not getting by because, what is it? 87 million Americans do not have adequate health care or health insurance. You could look at any of the numbers. 15 million more people just got thrown off of Medicaid thanks to President Biden basically canceling the emergency coverage under the COVID emergency. 100 million that are swamped with medical debt, 43 million who are basically, indentured servants for life with student debt. The rules of the game are working out really well if you're in the top 5-10%. But beyond that, people are being thrown over the cliff. And the climate is boiling over right now. We don't have time to spare. 170 million people were subjected to severe heat advisories last week. It was the warmest July on record. The Colorado River is drying up. Why does that matter? Because it supplies California agriculture that provides 50% of the fruits and vegetables for the nation. And this is like within a year or two of basically shutting down because the water can no longer get into the pipes in Lake Mead or whatever it's called, where the Colorado River basically is dammed up to provide electricity, but also so that the water can be allotted out. Well, pretty soon it's not going to make it over the starting gate to even trickle down the Colorado River. So American agriculture is in big trouble. The last time there was a big heat wave in Europe, the figures just came out on this. This was last year, that heat wave, and the health data, the public health data was just crunched. And what comes down to is that 61 million people died, premature deaths, 61 million in the last heat wave, which was small potatoes compared to the current heat waves that are basically going on all over the world. And what does our dear president do, who's basically abandoned his promises on the climate? He calls for cooling centers, instead of declaring a climate emergency. If this isn't an emergency, what is that emergency? And he opens the floodgates for more fossil fuels to be extracted from public lands and public waters. That bill that he says is his great claim to fame, that he's running on, the Inflation Reduction Act, that's really a fossil fuels first Act, and it requires that 60 million acres of offshore waters and 2 million acres of public lands be excavated every year, that they be added to the pillage on behalf of their fossil fuel friends before any major works can be undertaken for renewable energy. It's just, it's outrageous. And that's why, as bad as the picture is right now for people and the planet and peace, we're all going down the tubes here together. But as bad as that is, what's very exciting is that people are in a state of rebellion right now. We're not only seeing that in the labor strikes, in people in the street mobilizing, for example, tenant unions and for Tenants' Bill of Rights. In every area, people are, really rising up, and this has been going on for quite a while. And people are finally throwing in the towel on the political parties. And the numbers there are extremely encouraging too, whereby half of all Americans now identify as independents. The number that identify as Democrats and Republicans is about 25%. And most people, well, it's a plurality right now that say they will seriously consider voting third party in the coming election. So, I guess
and the percentage of Americans that now say they have full faith and trust in the mainstream media is, I don't remember the number, but it's rather small, definitely under 50%. And,
I mean, it's in the toilet. It's around, I think, 14%.
Yeah, something like that. I was thinking, and the article, one of the articles I saw about it, might have been New York Times, was saying, what a horrifying thing this is. And I was thinking, oh, this is wonderful. People are finally noticing the propaganda being pushed on all their TV channels.
Exactly. And that's why, people shouldn't get bent out of shape about being smeared by mainstream media, because if you're smeared by, an institution that people consider public enemy number one or maybe number two, that's not such a bad thing, to be an enemy of the public enemy. Who cares?
Yeah.
You're like, we're listening to old white guys whine, basically, David Axelrod and company.
Are you calling Joe Biden old?
Well, I'm referring to his colleagues who are smearing us for challenging them. Who cares? Let them, because people aren't in their camp, and they're not being, they're not going brain dead the way they used to, just like roll over with a smear from mainstream media. Now it's like, who cares? Who even notices?
What do you feel that you, during your runs, or Cornel West or whoever the Green Party nominee may be, can and could achieve, even if they don't win the presidency? Now, I know the Green Party will definitely win next time, but if the Green Party doesn't win, what can still be achieved?
Yeah. So, I don't rule it out. These are strange times, but, as a baseline, look at 2016. We completely changed the progressive agenda. Now, the Democrats only give it lip service. They won't really do they won't even talk about getting rid of fossil fuels, let alone really doing a Green New Deal, which requires, the Green Party's Green New Deal says we're done with fossil fuels in 10 years. We're done. They're out. They're gone, which is all that the climate really cares about. The climate doesn't care how much renewable energy you have or how many, electric vehicles you have. They care about the fossil fuels that are continuing to poison them. So we laid out that, Ralph Nader back in the year 2000 as a Green Party candidate put Medicare for all on the map. Our 2012 campaign put student debt, the abolition of student debt on the map, much to John Oliver's chagrin, as John Oliver, attempted to apologize for his, his cronies. We put that stuff on the map that has really changed political dynamics, and reparations, for example, for Indigenous and actually for African American and Indigenous people in our reparations proposals. So, these issues haven't gone away. They've only gotten entrenched and stronger, and the Democrats continue to just give them maybe a little bit of lip service here and there. So I think we strengthen the fight on the issues. We stand up for working people, and labor is beginning to break away. If you look at what happened with the Railroad Workers Union, even before the Democrats shot them down, and prohibited them from running a strike against, the horrific industry that is the most profitable industry in all of the U.S. and can't spend even 1% of their 50 billion in profits last year, whatever it was. It was enormous. The Railroad Workers Union was calling for independent politics, aside from, other major solutions, not just for their own, family leave and so on, and days off and protection on the job. They're calling for that for everybody, and we're seeing unions do that, really stand up in a much bigger way. And they are also calling for an independent political vehicle for people, not just to fall in line with the Democratic Party that has betrayed working people for decades. How many times have the Democrats had a congressional majority, as well as the presidency, that they could have passed, the Employee Free Choice Act and made it far easier to establish unions? They've consistently, thrown working people under the bus here. And I think it's gotten to the point where people can't ignore that anymore. And by running that in a political campaign, we help empower those issues. I think we also help cross-link the issues. So, I would like to see all those movements come out stronger, and understand that independent politics is really their only hope. Because if you continue to be subservient to the powers that are abusing you, you're going nowhere, no matter what kind of lip service they might give you in a campaign. But President Biden has a real track record right now. So there's no excuse to just only listen to what he says. And he's not even saying it, and the idiot Democrats, the AOCs and so on, and even, Bernie's leading the charge to just sheepdog people back into the Democratic Party. They are endorsing Biden without extracting any kind of consent.
I know. AOC jumped, a year in advance, over a year in advance, jumped the gun to proudly state she was endorsing Biden, rather than pressuring him in any way to stand for anything in his next run. Before I run out of time with you, I wanted to at least mention this event we have coming up on Saturday. It is a fundraiser for the Green Party, and I will be performing stand-up comedy, a new stand-up comedy set via Zoom. And why should people attend this coming Saturday, the Green Party fundraiser, other than the fact that I'm awesome? I mean, of course, but there's plenty of other things going on with the Green Party right now as well.
Yeah, well, no, I'd say everybody needs a really good laugh right now about the things that we can count on Lee to talk about. So I'd say really come and see our world in the perspective it deserves to be discussed in. So come for that, just for your own mental health. You need to come to that, but also for your own mental health. We need a fighting chance in the upcoming election, and just the world that we're dealing with right now. So I'd say come and connect and become part of this fight. We're in the process right now of creating a 50-state ballot drive, and we badly need people to help lead the charge on that. And, so there's all kinds of stuff you can do to make this happen, but come to the convention, but especially come to that fundraiser and that talk for your political mental health. It's really important to be there.
Just real quick, in closing, how close is the Green Party to getting on every ballot? How tough is that? And you were able to get on most of them, right?
We were on in 47. 47 out of the 50.
I was going to say 57. That's impressive. But
yes.
47. Okay. So,
right.
Almost the full 50.
We think we can do 50. We're starting much earlier this year, and with a lot more volunteers and people on the ground. And we know a lot more about it. We're also prepared for the dirty tricks that the Democrats will certainly do, because they have done some pretty outrageous things. They will call you up if you sign a petition. They will call you up and pretend to be the Green Party and tell you to unsign your petition. And,
Oh yeah.
they'll do
Yeah.
everything. They'll take us to court. They're going to do all the rest. But that's really good that they're that scared and that they're that desperate. So I'd say
That's right. They sent out, I can't remember which time this was. They sent out texts to people saying, you've signed this petition. You're risking, the Democrats' election chances. Do you want to do that?
they actually called
Yeah.
Tony Ndege, who was the head of the Green Party's ballot drive in North Carolina. They called him up pretending to be the Green Party, telling him that the Green Party wanted him to take his name off the.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's really, it's wild. It's crazy.
Corruption knows no bounds. Yeah.
It does. And take it as a good sign that they are running scared. They know their days are numbered. That is a sign of our strength. And in the words of Alice Walker, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. Don't let the Democrats talk you into hopelessness and powerlessness. We do have the power. It's about getting organized and demanding it so that we can have, we can survive, let alone thrive. We should be doing both. We have the resources to do that. It's all about taking the power back. So come and make it happen.
Thank you so much for joining me, Dr. Jill Stein, and I will see you via Zoom on the fundraiser Saturday. And thanks a lot. Keep up the fight.
Looking forward to it.
Bye.